back to this idea of your work as a feminist artist, and you constantly interrogate questions of ecology. It runs through all your work, urban transformation, religious fundamentalism. The artworks are always grounded in a social context. I'm going to come to form with my next question, but for the time being, we stay with the whole idea of the citizen artist. You've called yourself a citizen artist. I want you to respond to that. How do you explain that?
The term, it's not without its problems, but what it does indicate very clearly is a social commitment. It's basically an artist who brings her capacities, her skills, her imaginary to issues, concerns which have a meaning for society, for community. It's about a commitment to doing that. In a sense, all art practice is about, reflects and engages with society because it doesn't exist in a vacuum. But work that is explicitly, in a sense, ideological, which chooses to make that commitment and to focus on that, is, I think, important to distinguish. So that's why the term citizen artist becomes a useful one. Artist activist is another formulation, which I think is a little more tricky because our idea of what is activist is perhaps closer to what I was through the 1980s up to the mid-90s, where I was very much on the street. I was also part of various things in the women's movement. But after that, a lot of my activism went into the sphere of art, which has been criticized, I mean, as an elite space, a space that is actually not something that's accessible to ordinary people. But for me, there were several things that became possible with this movement. One was a lot of the more complex kind of understandings that we were developing within the movement. A lot of research and scholarship and reflection was not actually being communicated, except within academia and a little bit in cinema, I think. So I was very interested in bringing these ideas into public discourse. And what I did in the early years, very consistently, in fact, continue to do, was to bring women that I knew from women's groups into the installations. And the early work was all in cultural centers, community centers, and places like that, not so much in art galleries. So that's another aspect of being a citizen artist, is the engagement with who you wish to speak to, and always something that I do is always have discussions, always have some form of conversation, organized discussions around works, which for me is a very important part. Of course, the work itself embodies my concern and my deep interest in what happens with the viewer participant.